night, and there it is right there. I didn't know they sent me a picture. They parked near this place for this night because they're camping out. You know, they camped out next to where the safari area is pretty barren, but there's next to a forest. And so the next morning they woke up and the dog had to go to the restroom. They took their dog and they let the dog out, and the dog wandered off into the forest and got a little bit lost. And so the dog was looking around, and soon a lion came around and saw that dog and thought to itself, that looks it's pretty edible. I could eat that. And so the dog kind of sensed something was going on and saw these bones laying around there. And so the dog saw the lion coming toward it and stopped at the bones and said out loud, this lion meat sure was good. And so the lion stopped and thought, that thing is a lot more fierce than I thought, because it must have ate a lion already. And so the lion backed off, crept back, and started going away. But this monkey was up in the trees and saw this whole thing happen. And thinking that he could earn favor with the lion, decided to go to the lion, the monkey did, and say, hey, this is what happened. That dog didn't eat that lion. Those bones were there and all this. So let's go get that lion. And so the lion said, okay, well, you jump on my back and we'll go get that dog and eat it. And I'll eat it. And so they started coming again, and the monkey, or the dog, had saw the monkey go toward the lion. So as he's trying to get away a little bit, he stopped and said out loud again, said, I wonder where that stupid monkey is. I sent him away an hour ago to bring me another lion. The lion ate the monkey. Anyway, a little food joke for you, because today the lesson's title is Everyone Deserves to be Fed. And I think that is something that we can all agree on. When you think about that, usually you're thinking about just eating physical for your physical body, and that is obviously important also. And so I think we can all agree on everybody deserves to be fed, right? In the United States, and especially during my lifetime, I have seen the school lunch program expand probably beyond what it needs to, but it's very good. Meaning, it covers a lot more than lunches. It covers, breakfast and whatever else usually. In fact, right now here in Rockdale, they send out buses during the summer with food for lunch for kids. If you, are on that, you don't have to be on the list. I say that kind of weird, but you just got to pay attention to where the buses are going, and you can go get a free lunch. The kids can, which is great. I think it's a great way to use our resources to help people in need. Well, obviously, there are stories in the Bible about this too, and they're talking about a lot of different things, physical and spiritual food, but a couple of them are, and I pointed these both out because I want you to know there is two different stories, because a lot of us that, just peruse the Bible kind of always remember the feeding of the 5,000, but actually, which was the first story of feeding a lot in Matthew. But later on in Matthew, just the next chapter, there's a story about feeding the 4,000. And those are two different stories that are very similar, but the whole point of them are the idea, which you know of, is feeding a multitude of people without that much resources. And so when we're thinking about that, we think of, I don't know what you think of, I guess, but I would think generally what people understand is that the spiritual food that they were receiving was filling them up physically also, which is definitely true. On the feeding of the, now I'm getting confused, on the feeding of the 5,000, I think it was, might have been the 4,000 anyway, on one of these stories, that was they had already been following Jesus 3 days. And so they had been fasting for 3 days, this group of people. And so when they actually got fed with physical food, they were just taking in a little bit, which, as you know, if you fasted, is what you need to do when you come off of a fast anyway. You don't go to Golden Corral after you're done with your fast. I mean, you don't. It can cause you physical damage. So anyway, when we do that, when we think about this, we think of, like I said, the food being spiritual food, which is what he was giving mainly anyway, but it was Jesus that insisted that they get actually physically fed too. And of course, we know this, but we don't think about it a lot, is that Jesus didn't write the Bible. Because both of these stories, it's in a male patterned writing. I'm forgetting what the word is now for some reason anyway. Help me out, Larry. Anyway, from a male perspective, when you're writing from a male perspective, there's a word for it. Anyway, because in both these stories, it says that those numbers, the 4,000 and the 5,000, not including women and children. Right after, you'll say, not including women and children. Which Jesus would definitely, if he was writing, or if he was even being written down from what he was saying, would have included those people. Not to get the numbers higher, but just because he would include those people. They're not different. They don't deserve lesser or more, but they deserve the same amount of praise, if you will, or they're the same spirit. Whether it's in a female or a male, it doesn't make a difference. A child. So when we see those places in the Bible, if we're studying it, then we recognize the fact, again, that this is someone that was that wrote these stories, was someone that was spiritually inspired to write these stories, which is great. And yet, we have to recognize that there's more to the story than just that. That was their spiritual awakening. Just like I've told you many times, that when we get away from the original Gospels and we hear mainly Paul, that it's his story, his understanding of his own spiritual unfoldment, if you will. Because he had a huge spiritual unfoldment, going from a guy that used to persecute the Christians, to killing them, and all of this, to a true believer in all of this. And he was, speaking of Paul, which I wouldn't go into here, but anyway, speaking of Paul, he was more of a what you would call a traditionalist in the Christian church of today, as far as I'm placing my belief in Jesus the man instead of Jesus the Christ. Now, of course, traditional Christianity would say, oh yes, we believe in Jesus Christ, but they're confusing that as the same thing, and that's not the same thing. Jesus the man recognized the Christ within him, which made Jesus Christ. And so, when we're thinking about all these things, we have to it's just a whole bunch of stuff that we have to think about. And we don't have to think about it either. If we're looking for just guidance, if we're looking for just some type of help in the Bible, we don't have to think about all that stuff, obviously. But we have to recognize that the gospel was written, or the Bible was written as a gospel, which means it should have good news in it. So we should always consider the good news in it. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, now this is what Fillmore says about this. About the food that we eat and things. Supplying the physical need does not solve the whole problem of hunger for humanity. And it doesn't. We have all sorts of thoughts that go into that. Just think about, I don't know if you guys like it, but every once in a while I think about, and I try to convey to other people that have come that aren't as old, I think about sometimes back in the old days, old Western days and stuff, not when I was alive, but old Western days, how it would be such a pain to live most of your life just gathering food, to eat, just to sustain yourself, to survive. A long time ago, there weren't no Burger Kings, believe it or not. You couldn't just drive up and get what you wanted. You had to go hunt it, do whatever, grow it, whatever. That would be a major pain, So we're very fortunate and blessed that we have come to the understanding of what we do nowadays. And the reason I like to consider that and think about that and show my kids that has happened is because of the future. If we've come that far, there's a lot further we can come. And to think that there is something in our vast galaxy, in the understanding of Christianity, if you believe in a heaven or something, that there's not another group of individuals or humans, whatever they're called, that are more advanced than us is kind of silly in my mind. There is some more advanced people, or things, whatever we want to call them. Maybe we're not ready to accept that yet, which makes a big difference, right? And I'm not going into all that, and you can think how you want to, obviously. But what I'm getting to is that the food is not the whole deal. The food, as far as the physical food, is not the whole deal. He goes on and says, for humanity's hungers are as varied as his interests and desires. And we know that. I mean, we were praying this morning about the wars in the world, to have peace and to have all this other stuff. But you have to have an understanding, a knowing that peace can't exist, right? You can't look at somebody and say, I hate you, and have peace, wish for peace in the world. I mean, it just doesn't work. And so we have to understand that there are many desires, and for the people who think that, well, if we take over the world and everybody will think like us, it's not going to happen that way. God created humanity as humanity, not for everybody to be robots and think the same thing. So when we look at people, and that's where we get kind of sidestepped when we're looking at people, well, they look different than I do. They came from a different place than I did. They have different understanding, different mores, different types of way to live life than I do. And to think it's wrong is not at a point where you're allowing your spiritual self to say, hey, this is a new expression of God that I'm just experiencing. You can do that and not be threatened, because that's the only thing that stops us from doing that, is feeling threatened. And we don't have to feel that way. He goes on and says, they include his thoughts and feelings as well as his physical needs. Well, which means humanity. But again, Fillmore even writing in the, I can't believe it. I'm going to remember that name before we get out here in a little bit. From a male perspective. He's writing from a male perspective, because he said that a lot too. But that was back in the 30s and 40s and things like that, and even before. So you have to think about all these things of what we're looking at and what life was like at that time. That's why I'm always a proponent for this blasphemy for some people, continuing to write the Bible. Because we have evolved more since the biblical times, right? That was still a time when you're mostly gathering, hunters and gatherers. So we've come a long ways, baby. Of course, the proverb, give a man fish, it feeds him for a day. Teach a man to fish, it'll feed him for a lifetime. We all know that. And me included, this is such a popular proverb. Or at least I'll just speak for myself, for a long time thought it was from the Bible, because it's such a good one. No, it should be from the Bible, but it wasn't. It wasn't, believe it or not. There's some things that are talked about and written in the Bible that sound a little bit like this, but it's not the same thing. So this was a proverb, and I don't know if I wrote down who wrote it or not. No, I did not.
Yeah, it's on there.
Yeah,
Oh.
it's on the Bible.
Lao Tzu, but I don't think that's, I don't
Yes,
know.
he did.
Okay, maybe it was. Maybe it was. I thought it was from someone else, but it might have been. So he was a spiritual teacher too, though. So when we are thinking about that, and see, this is what I really love about unity, and why I've always loved it about unity. This is what I think unity does. I mean, we may not be as good on giving the person a fish, but we're very good about teaching the person to fish, okay? Because all of this stuff that we're talking about as far as spiritual food and other things is inside of you already. You don't have to go through me to get it. Yet, we gather at a place at a time to help each other learn more and more and more. Life, sometimes we get to a point in life, in the physical life, where we think whatever we think. We think, well, I'm here at this point. This is further, or this is as far as I wanted to ever go. This is further than I ever wanted to go, and I'm just going to sit on my laurels. But that isn't what life does. Life does not allow you to sit on your laurels. You're either moving up or to learn more, or you're regressing. And so when we allow ourselves to learn more about our spirituality in particular, it allows us to grow in all areas. And so even though I love children and love to have them in the church, I love to hear them, I've never been one where, like the majority of churches say, we got to get that youth movement going. We got to get that, all our resources need to go to youth. Yeah, we do, but there is a time in a person's life which varies the gambit of when they're ready to receive that. When they're ready to open their ideas up to, there's more to me than just this physical body. Because there is a lot more to me and you than this physical body. So we have to remember that we need to teach ourselves, continue. Life is a continuum as far as learning. We never stop learning if we don't want to. I was very happy to see the other day, and I don't remember where it was from, about, of course, you get older, you see that and you like it, but said, there's a bunch of myths about growing older, about your body has to fall apart, your brain decreases as far as knowledge and all that. And they were dispelling that right off. They said that's not true at all. They said as long as you're active, you're physically, your body will more than likely stay in good shape. And as long as your brain is active, you can continue to grow in that area too. And so when we give up, we give up. Now, if we give up at an older age than a young kid, maybe it'll deteriorate faster, who knows? But the point is that it's up to us still. We don't have to give up per se. Recently, everybody loves Bill, and when, I might have told you this, I might not have. When I went out there that Sunday to see him, before he went out, when he was on the stretcher and going to the ambulance, I called his name, and he responded. He didn't respond verbally. He responded by looking at me, though. So he recognized his name, and I don't know if he recognized me, but he recognized that I was someone that cared for him and was calling for him. So even though he never did verbally speak after that, and of course, as the days went on, it was no communication whatsoever, no recognition. But all of us have that for, the deterioration doesn't happen in a split second usually. And so we're here, we're plugged into life, in other words. We're plugged into life, and we can continue on that life if we choose to do so. So what we really need to do to be fed is the knowledge to feed ourselves, which we all have. We can go to Burger King, whatever, McDonald's, whatever. Don't have to go there. Go someplace healthy. Whatever you want to go to, you can do that, right? It's easy, right? Now, how many people know how to grow a garden? How many people know how to hunt? Not as many as they used to, right? So we need to continue to build on our knowledge, not to regress. I think it would be hard for a lot of adults to go out and learn how to hunt. It's not as hard to learn how to garden, but it is still. You got to know what you're doing. And you have to know where to plant, what to plant where, and all that stuff. So we don't want to let ourselves regress. Now, does everybody know how to run a Burger King? I don't. I don't, but I'm happy for those that learn how to do it. So I'm really plugging Burger King this morning, aren't I? Yes. Anyway, not really trying to. But. So we have to learn, and the most important part of this is feeding ourselves, because we know we have the knowledge to feed ourselves, but the fortitude to continue. That's the most important part as we grow older. Because, kids naturally want to learn. They do it naturally, I should say, without really even thinking about it. We walk around and we take advantage of the gravity, the oxygen in the air. Sometimes we think about it, but most of the time we're not thinking about, well, there needs to be trees and all this other stuff to make oxygen. And we don't think about, well, if the Earth isn't spinning exactly right in the exact orbit, we'll lose our gravity. We don't always think about those, but sometimes we do, don't we? Yes. And if we do enough, then we have to recognize, well, like in this instance, in the world today, that if we're silly enough to do something to knock that Earth off of orbit, we're all going to be hurting, right? I mean, there's some things that we have learned in life that aren't the best for us, but could have been, still can be, but could knock the Earth out of its orbit, right? I mean, if we start dropping nuclear bombs, it's going to knock the Earth, wobble it somehow, isn't it? So we've got, and I'm not trying to get onto anybody, okay? I'm just saying that we have to have the fortitude to understand what we know and to use it to our advantage for everybody. Excuse me. And this is something that I think is funny because, not funny, haha, but it's the way people think. Our spiritual journey, us going to church every Sunday and everything, does not guarantee us going to heaven. I hate to break the news to you. You going up to the altar and kneeling and getting your sins forgiven at a confessional does not guarantee you're going to heaven. Now, all that stuff is good. It's all fine. It's good. But what guarantees us going to heaven is how our relationship is with our spirituality. If we understand our spirituality totally, then when are we going to reach heaven? I guess when would be better. When? Right now, if you want. Right now, if you want. Believe it or not, no matter what aches and pains your body experiences, no matter what financial condition you're in, you can experience heaven right here and right now. Or go home and experience it wherever, anywhere. You can experience heaven right here and right now. I know this may blow your mind as far as I was looking forward to going to heaven when I died. And you still are, but I'm just saying that you can, the whole point, I mean, I always looked at life as kind of an R&R from the military, if you will, okay? You get a rest and relaxation time from the military, so go out and have fun. Instead of, I've always looked at, personally, heaven as being someplace where we're all perfect. It'd be kind of like, and this is kind of a weird one, I know you probably won't like this, but anyway, it'd be kind of like going to Las Vegas and the craps table, always rolling 7 or 11. That's what heaven is. I know that's a weird analogy, but listen, if there's no life to me is like I get all these choices. The free will is what makes it fun.
A box of chocolates.
A box for what?
A box of like a box of chocolates.
A box of chocolates, yeah. Oh, life is like a box. Yeah, yeah. I always like that movie. Life is like. Anyway, yeah. So it's up to you what you think about life. I mean, how are you going to look at it, and what are you going to do with it? And our place in life is not guaranteed. There used to be, well, there still is in some countries, believe it or not, a caste system. And I'm sure you learned that in school. And a caste system is something that you're born a prince, you're going to be king someday. If you're born a pauper, you're going to be a pauper all your life. Okay? A low-class person or something. But that's not where we live, at least in the United States. I mean, it can be that way, but it doesn't have to be that way. We have the opportunity. Now, some people have to start on the third step, and we're starting at the first step. Okay, I understand that. But what I'm saying is that our life here isn't going to stop us from moving up those steps, right?
That's right.
And moving up the steps can be other than money. It doesn't have to do with money necessarily. It has to do with what we're thinking and what are our limitations that we're putting on ourselves. Because we don't have to limit ourselves. My next talk will be on, probably be entitled this, but I don't know yet, will be on you can't hate without love. And the reason I'm bringing it up right now is because of what's going on in the world and all this, is because if we look at, sometimes we get into a place where we feel like, and I don't even like using, like Francie says, the word hate, but I used it specifically because of the fact that sometimes we get our personality involved in something and we hate someone or something. When really, which we'll go over the next time, really we are finding what it's doing, what hate is doing, is triggering something inside of us that we want to change. Believe it or not. I know that's hard to face sometimes. But it's turning into us something that we need to look at and investigate. So when we hate somebody, it's a part of us that we need to show more love. And we love that part, but we haven't learned how to love that part. I know that sounds weird too. So, well, I'll get into that next time we talk. But, I do want you to understand if we're having this idea of feeding the multitude, which we're going to eat here physically here in a minute. But Reverend Francie said something a couple of weeks ago, and I don't know why we let it slip, and you guys shouldn't let us slip anymore. Is she was saying, why aren't we more visibly praying for the potluck before we do it? Because we used to always be good at that, but now we're just harried around here afterwards, right? So we'll make sure we pray for that today. But being aware of that is important, and that's why I'm saying that. Being aware of our spirituality and our unlimitedness in this life is important for us. And we're going to bless the food for what reason? Because it's going to sustain our bodies. And we're going to go forward using that sustenance to understand the substance of God, which is good, right? So, recognize and know that God wants you to succeed. Sometimes we don't feel like anybody's on our side, do we? But you've always got somebody. The spiritual understanding of the universe wants you to succeed. But we have to be open to receive it. So are you ready to receive the spiritual goodness from Spirit? Good. I hope you are. If so, that is it. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Was the word masculine point of view?
No, but it could be.
Okay.
It's actually,
It was driving me crazy, and
Oh,
I was
sorry.
trying to find it.
I'll tell you when I think about it.
Me too, Sandy.
Sorry. I was going to say. Anyway, I'll think about it here in a minute.